In this video, I'm going to teach you a secret to a great sounding track in any genre. And the secret to this is really simple: getting your kick and the bass right. So if you can balance your kick and the bass at those low frequencies, it's going to sound great in the club, on your phone speaker, in your headphones, because electronic dance music is all about that kick and the bass. The process is super simple. They're going to be 6 steps that you can follow. Even if you don't have a studio, you will always get your kick and the bass right. You will get that perfect balance. So make sure you stick to the end of this video. And for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Vlad and I create superstar music producers. So if you want coaching and work on your production, mixing, sound design skills with music, all the links are going to be down below. All right, so let's get started with the video. So this is the track that we're going to be using for this example. Alright, so the track is not mixed at all. That's one thing that I want you to keep in mind. And the bass in this track, it's really accurate, like it's really balanced, because sometimes it may be too much of the bass and it's like really easy to just like do too much. But in this one, the accent is going like on the mids, and the bass is just right. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about is the sample selection. So important. Like, so many times I had good bass lines, but because you select the wrong kick, this is also important. Like, the quality of the bass is going to be determined by the kick that you select. So let me show you the original kick and the bass that I have for this track. So it's really nice. The kick is short, punchy. All right, and if we do like this, so this is the kick itself. Also pretty nice, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick the wrong kick and just put it here so we can really feel how important it is to have the right kick. So for example, let's select like, okay, I think this one. So it doesn't really sound that good, right? So the track loses its punch, it loses its power, and like in the mix especially. So you almost don't hear the kick, the punch of the kick. And this is really not nice. So the next time when you're working with the kick and the bass, if you don't have that right balance, if you feel like it just doesn't sound good, just simply try replacing the kick, because most of the times it's going to work and it's going to help you like a lot. So for example, this one, maybe it's going to work, maybe not. Yeah, same thing, right? For this bass, it just doesn't work. So if we go back to the original kick that I made with the snap, it's just so perfect. It's just so perfect, and that's the reason why I like making my own kicks. I would really suggest you do so. Sometimes I use samples, but like quite often I just make my own kicks. So this is really good, and because I can tweak the kick, make it sound how I want, I love this method. So okay, number 1, sample selection is crucial. It's super important. The next step and the next principle is going to be the key of the track, right? So depending where your bass is, like in the register, is it in the lower register, is it in the higher register, it's going to sound really different. So this is F, and F is like perfectly in the middle between like C, which is it just doesn't have the sub bass. So it's really dark, it's really dirty. But if we put it like maybe G sharp, it's really nice and subby. But if we put it like B, it's almost like that we just put the bass 1 octave higher, right? So it will determine the sound, the flavor of the bass. So depending on the key, right? So keep that in mind. It's super simple. It's not something that you can get wrong per se. Sometimes, yes, but look, if you want to make the track in the key of F, that's cool. If you want to make a track in the key of B, that's cool. But just keep. Oh, one thing about the key: the higher you go in the register, the lower your kick can be. So we cannot have like super deep and super like subby kick if we have the bass in those lower notes, like C, for example, right? So the kick should be a bit more upper in the register. So like in F, it's pretty nice. Like it's in the middle. It's still like a bit dirty, but not too high. So this is also really important. So experiment with different keys depending whether you want to have like more dirty kind of track, kind of sound, or you want to have like more subby and clean type of track. Okay. Now, number 3 is going to be the length of the elements. This is so crucial, and a lot of the times why people can't just like balance their kick, the bass, like the low end, it's simply because the bass or the kick is just way too long. And I'm going to show you both of those examples. So let's do like this. We're going to bypass, like turn off the click of the kick, so we just hear like the body, the sub. And the same we're going to do like the top layer. We're just going to keep this one. So one ninja trick that you can do is going to be put a filter on your master channel and then just solo the sub frequency. So I sometimes just go to like 90, like 120, maybe even 60. This is really like sub. And you can hear like how the kick hits, right? Both the kick and the bass. And quite often we can be fooled if we do like this, right? So let me show you. If we put a kick in the track and we can hear the click, we may think that the kick is clean, that everything is good in like without low end, which is not true at all if you don't pay attention to the details, right? So let's say that we do like this, and then maybe we make the kick longer, but just because we don't really hear like the sub frequencies, because we can hear the click. Alright, so like it seems that everything is fine, like on one hand, but it's already too long. So the kick is just eating up the space that we had for the bass, right? And if we make it shorter, like 245, how it was in the beginning, we can really hear that punch of the kick. So it's just really about finding that sweet spot. Something like this is fine with me. So like I'm fine with making shorter kicks, right? So it's a rule of thumb, if you have a long bass, then you should have a short kick, and vice versa. If you try to do like both of these, most of the times it's just not going to work. So like it's almost like you're just like half-assing here, right? So you just try to like, okay, if I sacrifice a bit of bass, if I sacrifice a bit of kick, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Make a nice long bass, short kick. Long kick, short bass. And super simple. If you follow this principle, it's going to sound great, right? So that's one thing, like the length. Use this trick because it's really nice. Second thing is going to be same like with the bass, right? If I make my bass way too long, so we can still hear the kick because we have sidechain, and it may sound nice, but there's no space in between the kick and the bass, because the subwoofer, it needs at least like a little space because it goes like back and forth. And in terms of like phasing, like the physics, it can't move like back and forth at the same time. So you need to give it some time to rest, right? So this is why it's just super, super important to keep the right length for your elements. Right, so something like this, it's punchy, it's still pretty long, something like this, and then we can double check. Right, so it sounds good, everything is good. So keep that in mind, super important, the length of the elements. Now, step number 4, the principle number 4 is going to be the sidechain. So yeah, that's the thing in electronic dance music. We all love that pumping effect when we can just feel that groove, feel that bass. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bypass the sidechain, and I'm going to play the kick and the bass. Right, and then we can do the filter on the master channel. So it's almost like it's rumble. It doesn't sound clean, right? And we lose that groove when it comes to kicking the bass. It doesn't sound good. Yeah, it just sounds awful. I don't like that. But when we apply sidechain, so again, sidechain is going to depend on the length of the kick. And I usually do this by ear, but you can do this if you put the LFO tool on the kick, and then you can see, all right, if my kick is just like this long, then I'm going to make my sidechain curve something like this. If my kick is like a bit longer, then I can make the curve a bit longer. So I'm just going to do that by ear, because like right now it's really not that crucial, but keep in mind that's important. And with the sidechain, you can have basically 2 approaches. So the one that I use, I apply sidechain to the whole thing, right? So you can see that I don't use the split function, so I'm applying sidechain to the whole spectrum, to the whole sound, because I like that aggressive, like really pumping sidechain effect. But you can, for example, do like this. Let's say you just sidechain the 300 hertz, or maybe like 400. So it's not bad, but I like when it sounds like this, because it's just really so nice with the drums. Maybe you can apply a bit less of like wet signal, so just a bit, but I usually do like 100 because it just sounds nice. So sidechain, it's super important because again, the kick needs some space, and when we apply sidechain, we're basically creating that space, right? So we're ducking the bass when the kick hits, and the kick gets space where it can just really cut through, whether it's the bass, the drums, the elements. Of course, you can sidechain the elements. By the way, I've released a video about this if you want to check it out. It's going to be somewhere here. So with the right sidechain, we can really create that nice effect. All right, so super simple, keep that in mind. And also for the sidechain, I would recommend using volume shapers because they're so much better than compressors. In most cases, they just tend to sound cleaner. That's the thing that I love for the kick and the bass. When it comes to sidechaining like the groups, like drums, instruments, then yeah, of course, like not a problem at all. But with the bass line, I noticed that it just sounds better. It just sounds so much better. So right, the next step or the next principle is going to be the dynamic. So a lot of times it can be that you just don't work with the dynamics of the bass. And one of the things, like the basic one, is going to be like the filter cutoff. So for example, it's not how it's going to sound in the track, but I just want to give you an idea. Just pay attention to how it changes the sound, right? So if we do something like, it really changes the sound, right? And the same thing comes to the second layer. I'm also automating. Oh no, actually not, but we can do it like this. Something like this, right? Sounds really nice, like really nice. That's one of the ways how you can work with the dynamics of the track, like of the kick and the bass. The second crucial thing, and I just don't get why people don't do it. Working with the velocity is just so important. And then, like, again, there should be dynamics in the velocity. Like, we should not have like crazy dynamics because we're still going to compress it. But first of all, like, if you have notes in the same velocity, when you listen to this bass, it becomes boring so quickly because it's literally just you're poking in like in one thing all the time, and it just doesn't sound good, right? So it takes like, I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minutes to write the dynamics for the bass, something like this, right? But then it just sounds way more professional, way more interesting. And the same goes for the instruments, for the synthesizers. I just don't understand why people forget about it. And they have just like flat dynamics, like all the notes are literally the same. And yeah, like I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not nice. But if we do like this, then it's really good. And just compare this one to this right now. Right, and we can go back. Maybe it's not like really that audible, but one ninja trick that we can do, we can use the velocity to automate the filter frequency, and this is going to create such a nice groove and movement. Right, maybe like. Now we have this dynamic, now we have this movement, and again, it's just like one of the things that you can do with the velocity. I just like automating or like modulating the velocity, different elements with the velocity. That's the thing that I was trying to say, right? Really cool. And then again, just don't forget about this because it's super important. Now, next thing, and this is almost final one, we have one more. It's going to be the processing, right? So when it comes to the processing, I keep things simple. So the key to my bass lines, like my kick and the bass, the balance that I have, is saturation. So if you listen to this, you can play with different bands, right? So if you want to do something like this, that's cool. So in this case, I realized that, okay, this sounds pretty good for this track, and we can work with the dynamics here, something like this, and you can hear that it glues the sound together. It adds a little bit of that distortion, and it glues the sounds. It reduces the dynamics and makes the sound like way more balanced, right? So saturation is key to good sounding kick and the bass. And the same thing goes like for the kick. There's a bit of EQ just to like balance it a little bit, and same for the kick. So a bit of saturation here, right? So if we listen to everything now, we can delete this one because I don't want to automate the filter of the first bass, right? And then without the saturation, so yeah, like the sound becomes a bit louder, but that's exactly what I needed. So if you look, so we peak at like -11. It's pretty much the same loudness, but it just feels way nicer, way more interesting, right? And the last thing for good sounding kick, and the bass is going to be the leveling, like the loudness. Actually, this is like the number one thing, but it doesn't really matter. If you apply those concepts right, you'll get your bass right, like perfect every time. Right, so if we put this, let's say like here, so the loudness is super important. If the bass is way too loud, now it doesn't sound good. But if we balance it right, so usually it's like -6 decibels of difference between the kick and the bass, but then again, it can vary depending on the genre, depending on your track. Sometimes it can be like a little less, it can be a little more. What I noticed for my tracks, it's like always this like 6 dB of difference. Sometimes, like again, sometimes could be a bit less, a bit more, but in general, like if you put the fader like -6 and then the bass is going to be around -12, could be plus minus a bit here, but in general, you can see that. Maybe we can put it something like this, right? And then with the drums. Yeah, pretty much like -12, we can tweak that. But yeah, you can see. All right, so those are the 7 concepts that you need to understand if you want to get your kick and the bass right. So if you master those, if you play them in the right way, as I've shown you, then you're going to get good sounding track every time, like really, because the kick and the bass is like at least like the half of dance music track. Because you can have a good track, a really good track, but if you're kicking the bass, they don't sound good, the rest will just not work. So yeah, that was pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys learned something new in terms of production, mixing, and you can apply those principles and concepts in your music. So if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that like and notification bell, helps a lot with growing and the algorithm. And if you're interested in coaching, all the links are going to be down below, and I see you guys in the next video.